Hello everyone, welcome back. I wanted to take some time today and talk to you guys about Egyptian history. It's a very fascinating subject to me. I spent a lot of time studying it about 15 years ago, okay? I probably only remember about 5% of everything I studied. And the reason is because there's just so much to learn, so much to know about Egyptian history. And the reason is because it spans about 4,000 years, okay? Egyptian history goes back to about 3,500 BC, and it comes forward to about 300 AD, okay? And during that time period, they experienced two dark ages, okay? Dark ages, we mean, there was a breakdown in the social structure, most significant to us, there's not that much written information that's available. Okay, that's what typically happens during a dark age. People stop writing things and recording things. Okay, so there were two breakdowns in Egyptian history, and those two dark ages is what divides what we call the Old Kingdom to the Middle Kingdom to the New Kingdom. Okay, now those dark ages lasted about 200 years each. Now here's the interesting thing. The entire history of the United States is about 200 years. So Egypt's dark ages, were, like our entire history. So 4,000 years is a long time, okay? So the thing I want to talk to you guys about is the reign of Akhenaten, okay? Akhenaten's reign dates to about 1,300 BC, so 1300 BC, and that date's important. Remember that date. We're going to come back to it. Now, when you're looking at ancient history, it's hard to pinpoint history and correlate it to our calendar because obviously they weren't following our calendar. With Egyptian history, we're able to track it pretty well if we use the lives of the pharaohs as a timeline. Okay, because they gave us so much written information in terms of hieroglyphs, we're able to say, okay, well, this pharaoh came before this pharaoh, that pharaoh came after this pharaoh, this is what happened during, this pharaoh's lifetime. So we're able to keep track of Egyptian history very well, within Egyptian history, but it's very hard for us to, compare it to our calendar, right, or compare it to to the calendars or lack of calendars of other places in the world. Okay, that's going to come back later on in this discussion. I want to talk a little bit about the reign of Akhenaten. He made a major change, okay, that would have set Egypt off in a totally different direction, except for the fact that after he died, the people that came after him brought Egypt back to its original course. Okay, so Egypt was following a certain direction. Okay, and then what happened is within this guy had a 30-year reign, and about 5 years into his reign, he basically declared that Egypt would be monotheistic. Okay, he said that there would be only one god worshipped in Egypt. Okay, and that was the Aten god. And the Aten basically translate as the sun ray god or sun disk god. We can just call it the sun god just to simplify things. But the important thing is that he said that there would be that they would only be worshiping one god. And you might say, well, how did this happen? Well, here's the thing. After he died, basically the people that came after him basically set Egypt back to its original course, and there's a reason for that. He closed down all the temples. Okay, he did two things that really upset a lot of people. Number one, he closed down all the other temples of all the other gods, which upset a lot of priests. Okay, because basically the priests were making a lot of money, running these temples where people would go and they would sacrifice and pay tribute and all that stuff. So he put a lot of priests out of business. And when we say priests, don't think of priests as the way we think of priests today. The priests were basically part of the nobility. They were part of the ruling class. Okay, and the other thing that he did is he also upset a lot of people. Okay, because one of the changes that he did is that, he said that he and his family alone would do all the worshiping on behalf of Egypt. Okay. And as a result, only he and his family would be the ones to resurrect. Okay, resurrection was a big thing in ancient Egypt. In fact, it's a big thing in all religions. Okay, that's usually one of the first thing that all religions address. What happens to people after they die? If religion didn't exist, people would invent it because most people are not comfortable with the idea that if they or if their family members or their kids die, they disappear into nothing. Okay, so humans need to be able to say that after they die, they're going to go somewhere. Okay, so what this guy did is he said that only since he and his family were the only ones that were going to be worshiping the Aten god on behalf of the people, only he and his family were the ones that were going to resurrect. Which basically meant that all the other people living in Egypt would not resurrect, and that bothered a lot of them. Okay, it basically means that they would, basically just roam the earth as ghosts of some sort, something like that. So that's part of the reason why the people really did not like this guy. So what happened with this guy is after he died, his son. Okay, and you guys are familiar with his son. You may not have heard of Akhenaten, but you have heard of his son Tutmosis, or what you guys call King Tut. Okay, now interesting thing is his son basically he took over as a child. Right, he was a child pharaoh, and we have his they've studied his mummy, and there's an injury on the back of his head. Okay, so basically there's a good chance that his son was murdered because they wanted to destroy that family line. After after his son's death, what they did is the pharaohs that came after that, they went back and they basically completely erased Akhenaten's history. Okay, they went through all the all the different hieroglyphs that mentioned him, and they chiseled his name out. They tried to completely erase this guy, and that's the reason why King Tut's tomb survived to us, and we were able to find it. Because there was no record of King Tut, the grave robbers that came in later centuries didn't know about it, so they weren't looking for his tomb, and that's why it wasn't found until Carter discovered it. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. So that's the thing. It's important for you guys to know that after this guy died, they tried to erase his history, and they tried to erase his religion. Okay, the religion that he had established. Okay, and this is important because what happens is in that time, when you erase somebody's religion, right? Basically, what that means is you're going to kill off the priest, you're going to kill off all his followers, because that's how they did things back then. Anybody, anybody that was suspect would basically leave, which would try to or go into hiding. Okay, or would become part of an underclass. Okay, so now here's the thing. Let's go back to the date that I mentioned, 1300 BC. Okay, why is that interesting? Well, this is within 200 years of the Israelite Exodus. Okay, now we can't pinpoint it and say that it happened, 20 years later or 50 years later or 100 years later, because, like I said, we have this issue with the calendar. It's hard to correlate these different timelines between different cultures, but we know that it happened in the same place, Egypt. Okay, and we know it happened in that time period of around 1300, and we know for a fact that the Israelite Exodus came after, within 200 years. Okay, so here's the point that I'm trying to make. It is impossible, okay, to have a monotheistic religion in Egypt that would not somehow influence or create, or the Israelites. Okay, because it's too close. I mean, if it was, if you have a monotheistic religion in Egypt. If the Israelite Exodus happened somewhere else, let's say 3,000 miles away, you might say that they're not related. Or if it happened 500 years later, you might say that they're not related. But it's not the case. It happened at the same place, roughly at the same time. The two have to be related. Okay. So here's the interesting thing. I mean, if you talk to most Egyptologists, okay, they will deny any connection between the monotheistic religion in Egypt and the Israelite Exodus. Okay, and the reason why they have to deny it is because basically in order to be an Egyptologist, you pretty much have to work in Egypt. I mean, that's where that's what you're studying, right? So you have to be able to travel to Egypt. You have to be able to get along with the people that are there currently. And if you're telling them that their religion, okay, because here's the thing, if you look at Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all go back to Abraham. Okay, they all have Abraham as the common father, so they're all related. Okay, if you go to that part of the world and you tell them that the religion that they're currently worshiping is somehow related to what they consider a pagan religion, they're going to want to kill you, okay? At the very least, they're going to kick you out of their country, and as an Egyptologist, you're not going to be able to work. So if you're an Egyptologist, it's in your interest to vehemently deny any connection between the monotheism in Egypt and the Israelite religion, the Judaism, which came about within 200 years after that. You can't deny that. However, us on the outside, right, who are not connected to that part of the world, I mean, I think we can look at this and we can logically say that the two have to be connected. Okay. Now, obviously, there's some differences, and it makes sense that there would be differences, because remember, once the religion was banned, right, and the people are dispersed, it's going to go through some changes. Okay. Furthermore, Judaism was not committed to paper until many centuries later. Okay, it initiated sometime with the Exodus happened sometime around 1300 BC, but basically none of that was put into writing until about 800 BC. So there's a several hundred years that pass between the Exodus and it being put to paper. So until that time, it's being passed down as an oral tradition. Okay, so it makes sense that there's going to be a lot of changes that are going to happen along the way. But what we do know is where it started, and we know we know what's happening around that time at the place that it started and at the time that it started. So in my opinion, the two have to be connected. Okay. When you look at our modern day monotheism, because most of the world is monotheistic, right? I mean, basically today you either believe in no God or you believe in one God. There's very few people that believe in multiple gods. So in that sense, if the monotheistic religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, are all connected, as far in my opinion, to the monotheistic religion in Egypt, because of the time and place coincidence. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I really didn't give you. I mean, I gave you some details, but I didn't give you a whole lot of details. There's a lot of other videos on online, on the internet, that cover this subject, but if you guys are interested in studying it, and basically what you're looking for is just Google monotheism in ancient Egypt or Akhenaten. It'll probably be easier to Google monotheism in Egypt. You'll have tons of stuff that'll pop up. I mean, this period and this 30-year reign is very well documented. Okay, we have a lot of information that's out there. But the connection has not been made, and probably will not be made between that and the Israelite religion, for the reasons that I said. That it would make, basically it would making that connection ties all three religions to having a beginning. Someplace other than where they say that they began. So again, I encourage you guys to look into it for yourselves, and just go into it with eyes wide open and kind of see where it takes you. But thanks for watching. If you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not a member, subscribe. Talk to you guys next time.